North Korea simulates a nuclear missile strike as the U.S. and South Korea wrap up joint exercises. A bite of fish. Japan's prime minister looks to ease concerns over the release of treated water from Fukushima. The closest Philippine island to Taiwan eyes U.S. military help to develop a new port. Plus, remembering Taiwan's lost army. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Philip Broussard. North Korea says it has fired 2 ballistic missiles to simulate how it would conduct a nuclear strike. This comes as the U.S. and South Korea wrap up military exercises in the region. Jaime Ocon has this report.
U.S. and South Korean troops hunting for missiles off the east coast of the Korean Peninsula. These soldiers are learning how to work together, scanning the waters for projectiles that have splashed down in the ocean. The drills are part of an annual military exercise called Ulchi Freedom Shield, and this year's edition is one of the largest in history.
이번 연합훈련간 미국 특수작전 부대와 다양한 과제를 수담으로써 연합 특수작전 능력을 한층 강화할 수 있었습니다. 앞으로도 실질적인 연합훈련을 지속해 나감으로써 유사시 어떠한 임무도 완수할 수 있는 완벽한 연합작전 수행태세를 확립하겠습니다.
These exercises come at a time of heightened tensions in the region. Neighboring North Korea has upped tests of its missile program and is pushing to get satellites in orbit. Just hours before the exercises were set to end, North Korea tested 2 ballistic missiles, simulating how it would conduct a nuclear strike. The U.S. says this is just another example of the threat its allies face.
We've been very clear about this, condemned the DPRK's latest ballistic missile launch. This launch is in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and possesses a threat to the DPRK's neighbors and international community. We remain committed.
Given the threat from North Korea, countries in the region have begun working more closely together. In mid-August, leaders from the U.S., South Korea, and Japan met at Camp David in the U.S. It was the first summit of its kind for the 3 countries. These exercises are the first since the leaders of those nations pledged to improve security cooperation, with one of their most notable agreements to increase information sharing.
This is really important for ensuring that Japan, South Korea, and the United States are all on a common operating picture. So essentially what that means is that everyone is tracking the same information and looking at the same picture of the regional security environment at the same time.
These 3 countries have also pushed for more combined exercises, with the hope that this will show North Korea the commitment to their defense. But some analysts argue that the increased military presence could be putting more pressure on the region and forcing North Korea to respond with even more provocative actions.
Some of them are for military readiness. Some of them are in response to North Korean actions also. Yes, the U.S. can do it. Yes, there's a military purpose for doing it. But the way that it's being done, the frequency in which it's being done, the way it's being talked about certainly doesn't help bring down the tensions in the region.
With the U.S. and its allies already preparing for more military exercises later this year, this back-and-forth display of force shows few signs of ending anytime soon. Klein Wong and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about what effect a U.S. and allied military presence could have on North Korea, Jaime Ocon spoke to Jenny Town, a North Korea expert at the Stimson Center in Washington, D.C.
How do you think North Korea is looking at these joint combined U.S.-South Korea military exercises?
A lot of the exercises are geared towards, what if North Korea attacks South Korea? So the target of those exercises is really North Korea. So, any country that sees that many large-scale live fire exercises going on in its backyard is going to see it as a very provocative, very unsettling move. It is something they've complained about before. And especially when there's exercises included that involve decapitation, practicing targeting the leadership in North Korea.
And how have we seen relations develop or any attempts to resolve tension on the Korean Peninsula in the past couple of years?
Well, it's been a roller coaster, I'll tell you that. Even at the beginning of the Trump administration, right, it started out with sort of a promise for diplomacy. It quickly moved into fire and fury and all these bombastic responses from the United States. That certainly, if it didn't convince the North Koreans that a kinetic response was possible, it certainly convinced South Korea. And it made South Korea incredibly nervous. So we don't really have a strategy for how to rebuild diplomacy with the North Koreans. And instead, we're really focusing on how to keep the South Koreans happy in the meantime. And really catering to the alliance, catering to South Korea's anxieties with greater, with the changing geopolitical situation with U.S.-China relations, with a stronger North Korea.
With expected increased military activity on the peninsula and the aftermath of the summit from Camp David, where the United States, Japan, and South Korea are pledging for more cooperation, is there anything else that we could see or anything that we should be looking out for in the future?
The language that the North Koreans used to complain about it was basically mirroring what the Chinese were saying, right? And really talked about how this was a collective threat, to China, North Korea, and Russia. We need to get away from, looking at every single missile test and really obsessing over the technology of it, and really start looking at the broader geopolitical dynamics and how, what are the trends in the region? How is it changing? Where are we going with this?
That was North Korea expert Jenny Town of the Stimson Center speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. Taiwan's defense ministry has thanked the U.S. after President Joe Biden approved up to $80 million in military funding. The Foreign Military Financing Program helps with grants for foreign governments buying U.S. defense equipment and military training, but the program is usually reserved for sovereign states, and the U.S. does not officially recognize Taiwan as a country. U.S. officials say that approval for the funding does not mean a change in the country's foreign policy. Japan's prime minister has pledged to help his country's fishing industry after China banned its seafood. That ban came in response to the release of treated wastewater from the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster into the sea. Joyce Tseng reports.
Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio takes a bite of squid, caught from the Fukushima prefecture where treated radioactive water has been released. He and other Japanese ministers have been working to prove that despite concerns, the seafood is safe to eat. Consumers have grown wary of Japan's fish over fears of radiation contamination. Japan's move to discharge treated nuclear wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant, which is located near the country's eastern Pacific coast, is raising tensions across East Asia. The discharge is a key step in closing down the inactive plant, which has suffered meltdowns after being hit in 2011 by a tsunami, in what's considered the world's worst nuclear plant disaster since Russia's Chernobyl. Though the plan was approved by Japan's government and the UN's nuclear watchdog, several people in Japan and overseas have protested it. The biggest show of disapproval? A blanket ban from China on all of the country's aquatic products. It's a significant economic blow given China is Japan's largest trade partner.
但是我感觉这个过了一段时间之后，连我们自己国家的海产品都要受到影响了，因为它过段时间就要跑到这里来了。
In response to the ban, Tokyo said it's willing to tap into more reserves and add onto a $500 million pledge to support fishermen until demand recovers. But the backlash has gone beyond trade. Some of the heat has fallen on Japanese people living in China. Japan's foreign ministry has had to issue harassment warnings to its overseas citizens in China after thousands reported receiving prank and protest calls. The ministry even urged its citizens to, quote, not speak Japanese unnecessarily loudly.
いずれにせよ、中国側に対しては 国民に冷静な行動を呼びかけると、適切な対応を行うとともに、処理水について正確な情報を発信することを強く求めており、引き続き強く求めていきます。
Other international officials have shown solidarity. The U.S. ambassador visited Fukushima and also ate some fish in support of the water discharge. But this is a rocky start to what could potentially be a decades-long project to fully decommission the plant, which is sure to keep drawing global attention. Devin Tai and Joyce Zinn for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. military is in talks to develop a civilian port in the north of the Philippines. That's according to Reuters news agency. The Batanes Islands are just 200 kilometers south of Taiwan across the Bashi Channel. The move would boost U.S. military access to this strategically important area. Increased U.S. activity this close to Taiwan is also likely to anger China, which says Taiwan is part of its territory and has threatened to take the country by force. A U.S. military development in Batanes could have big implications for regional security. To discuss what those could be, our reporter Rick Lauert spoke with Washington, D.C.-based independent security analyst Aaron Matthew Lariosa.
Why would the U.S. be interested in developing a port with Batanes in this part of the Philippines? Why is Batanes such a strategically important place?
Batanes is in a really strategic location. The Luzon Strait separates Taiwan and the Philippines. Batanes is basically smack dab in the middle of that. Obvious to any planner, this is a key piece of geography. Whoever controls Batanes controls the strait. They are able to place various sensors, various area denial weaponry there to block off adversaries, to keep them out or to keep them in the strait. The Philippines is seeing the North as a vital piece to their national security. We've recently seen Philippine force movements. The 4th Marine Brigade recently redeployed from the south of the country to the north of the country in northern Luzon. Their area of responsibility also includes Batanes. The commander announced that this posting is permanent going forward.
Why would Batanes and the Philippines be interested in cooperating with the U.S. military in this way? And do you think it reflects the Philippines' greater foreign policy?
We've seen President Marcos state that these sites would be probably useful if they get an influx of refugees and for also repatriation of Philippine workers in Taiwan because they're just so close to Taiwan. But also, again, this does go towards defense. A big part of EDCA is mutual defense. And if somehow a Taiwan conflict would envelop the Philippines thinks it's better to have these sites, to have the assistance of its key ally, to not instead of not to have them and receive potentially the worst case scenario, which is let's say China, let's say they invade Taiwan, could potentially seize the islands to cut off the strait.
How do you think China might react to this sort of news of Philippine cooperation with the U.S. military in this area?
We'd probably see more negative reactions from the Chinese because they actually do have a right to fear these sites. Let's say somehow the Philippines does get involved and does allow U.S. access, then this is extremely detrimental. 200 kilometers from Batanes opens up a lot of future and current U.S. systems to assisting Taiwan in its defense, and also the Philippines in its defense. However, the more China acts up against these new sites, against U.S. Philippine military cooperation, the more the Philippines is likely to actually double down on its cooperation with the United States, as it sees that the Chinese are actually getting more aggressive, and therefore Manila will seek out more deterrence.
That was reporter Rick Lauert speaking with independent security analyst Aaron Matthew Lariosa. Nearly 1,000 guerrilla fighters fought and died for Taiwan in the jungles of Southeast Asia during the Cold War. They were recently enshrined in Taipei's Martyrs' Shrine. Ed Moon sets out to learn who these men were and why they're known as the Lost Army.
A torrential downpour in Taipei marks a moment many years in the making, as Taiwan's top military officials welcome back the remains of almost 1,000 soldiers from Southeast Asia to be interred in the country's National Revolutionary Martyrs' Shrine. It's a little-known fact that at one point, Taiwan's army had fighters overseas. At the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, Chinese nationalist forces escaped not only to Taiwan, but also into Myanmar and other parts of Southeast Asia through the southern Chinese border. There they formed an anti-communist base in the hopes of one day returning home. For decades, these soldiers remained in the so-called Golden Triangle, the area where the borders of China, Laos, Myanmar and Thailand meet. They became a lost army.
70年来，我们这一群孤军在泰缅辽这个俗称金三角地区积极准备反攻大陆，但是到别的国家了，就受到这些国家的共产党的追剿，所以它是四面作战，非常辛苦。
Tiao Yuliang, who now lives in Taoyuan, Taiwan, escaped to Myanmar and joined the Lost Army in 1958. As an ethnic Thai, Tiao's father served in the Republic of China, or ROC Army, during World War II. His father was labelled as a counter-revolutionary after the communist takeover. Both Tiao's parents were executed after he escaped to Myanmar. He swore to take revenge for his parents, but a joint operation launched by China and Myanmar against the guerrillas forced the Lost Army to retreat again in 1961.
4个步兵师在2个民兵师，6个师，正规部队啊，再加缅甸正规部队6万部队，飞机、战车围剿我们3个月。
Over 4,000 guerrillas were evacuated to Taiwan, and Tiao was among them. He continued to serve in Taiwan's special forces until his retirement in 1978. Tiao says he has never returned to China due to his hatred toward Beijing. To him, Taiwan is not only the ROC he fought to protect, but his one and only home.
对，很有恨，到现在我还恨。我妈妈被打，如果我不出来的话，我妈不会被打了。
Tiao was able to settle down and make a life for himself in Taiwan, even though the horrors of that time never leave him. But to many in modern Taiwan, the sacrifices of the Lost Army can seem distant. On a social media post from a Defense Ministry spokesperson, commenters asked what the Lost Army had done for Taiwan. The spokesperson's reply laid out the importance of what these soldiers did for the country. We are the Republic of China. Back then, if they hadn't helped spread out the enemy's attacks, maybe many of our compatriots would never have arrived in Taiwan. Maybe our losses would have been even greater. In their hearts, they never put themselves first. The return of Lost Army soldiers to Taipei's Martyrs Memorial marks a homecoming many years in the making, and the latest step in ensuring that their sacrifice is not forgotten. Eason Chen, Sam Hui, and Ed Moon for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, we meet the new additions to Taiwan's fishing fleet. Stay tuned.
For more stories from Taiwan that are a real home run, please download the TaiwanPlus app.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world. Charted by the freest country in Asia.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ian Kavat. Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC.
Public buses to be electric by 2030. A mission that begins with listening.
And telling the stories of Taiwan.
In Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Drawing insight from original thinkers.
And sharing it with the world. TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The U.S. has blocked certain types of AI chips from reaching the Middle East out of concern they could be resold to China. The controls target the most prized chips of American tech giant NVIDIA, These chips are key to training AI platforms and are at the heart of a global race for AI leadership. The U.S. already restricted Chinese and Russian access to these chips as part of Washington's crackdown on so-called countries of concern. NVIDIA and other tech firms like Intel have been adapting their businesses to create less powerful chips that could be sold to restricted markets. At least 3 people have been killed as Hurricane Idalia tears through the southeastern United States. The powerful Category 3 storm made landfall on the Gulf Coast of Florida on Wednesday. It plowed through the state while moving toward Georgia. Heavy rains and strong winds caused extreme flooding across the area. Rising sea levels attributed to climate change have made flooding a growing problem for people in Florida. Much of the state's population lives in cities along the coast. Experts say natural disasters like Idalia will increase in intensity as the climate crisis continues. Typhoon Saola has now passed by Taiwan and is on course to hit China. Sally Jensen is in southeastern Taidong County with a summary of the impact it's had on Taiwan.
Typhoon Saola has passed by Taiwan south on a course to hit China's east coast on Friday. Its wind speeds have it categorized as a super typhoon by the U.S.'s Joint Typhoon Warning Center. But its immediate effect on Taiwan has been so far fairly minimal. Now, that may be because its reach is somewhat smaller than the last 2 recent typhoons. It's relatively compact with a powerful center added to the speed with which it passed by the island nation. Saola has caused some extremely hot temperatures in northern Taiwan, and a few days of unpredictable torrential rainfall across the country could follow. But the land warning in place since Tuesday has since been lifted. Now, 2 more tropical storms have formed in the northwestern Pacific, and we will be keeping you updated on developments. John Su and Sally Jensen in Taidong County for TaiwanPlus.
Taipei Mayor Zhang Wan-an has said that navigating cross-strait relations is not impossible, but that it would require effort from both sides. Zhang made the comments at the annual Twin City Forum in Shanghai, where he met with the city's mayor Gong Zheng. The two signed a memorandum of understanding to promote intercity exchanges in technology, culture, and sports. Gong said he's been working to attract technology companies to set up shop in Shanghai and praised Taipei's advanced high-tech sectors.
历史不能选择，现在可以把握，未来可以开创。
A hospital in Taichung is using AI to diagnose sleep apnea. Doctors there say the new testing system is more advanced and convenient than traditional equipment. John Van Trieste has this report.
Loud snoring, disrupted sleep, and drowsiness during the day. These are just some of the symptoms of sleep apnea, a condition it's thought affects around 900,000 people across the country. Until now, testing meant sleeping overnight in a hospital while being hooked up to various uncomfortable devices.
很多线的束缚之下，我自己做过，那通常连翻身都会有点局限。
But doctors at China Medical University Hospital in Taichung have invented a new wireless method that can even be used at home. A device stuck to the patient's chest records their heartbeat, a good clue for whether they have sleep apnea. It then sends the data to an AI program that interprets the rhythm.
就能够侦测身体里面非常多的数据。
Staff at the hospital are excited about the possibilities of this new method.
可以做到一个精准的变化，那可以到90%几的一个准确度。
Once its trial stage ends, this technique won't be covered by Taiwan's national health insurance system. But those willing to pay out of pocket at least have a new option for getting diagnosed, which could be the first step to a better night's sleep. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Fishing is a major industry in Taiwan, and new tech developments are making life easier for the country's fleets. Eric Gao explains.
An eye in the sky on the lookout for fish. This drone system is a world first. It uses AI tech to scan the seas looking for schools of fish. When it spots them, it directs fishing boats to that area. The drones can be sent up in teams of up to 4 with a 60-kilometer range. This system was developed by the Economy Ministry and Taiwan's leading Industrial Development Research Institute. They expect it to be a game changer for the country's fisheries industry.
它可以用 AIoT 的这样的一个技术去判读说哪里有鱼群，然后赶快通知船长就近可以去做一个捕捞的动作啊。那运用这样的一个技术的话，它的这个鱼群判断的准确性高达80%。
Taiwan has the world's second largest distant water fishing fleet. It already uses helicopters to look for fish, but the work is dangerous and requires an experienced eye. This new automated system takes both the guesswork and the danger out of the process.
只要有无人机的帮忙，这个第一个就是节省人员，还有节省这些人力，再也会替这个母船带来一些抓鱼的资讯。
Officials have high hopes that tech breakthroughs like these will help the local fishing industry and spur the country's overall economic development. Joseph Wu and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
A rare Formosan black bear that was found caught in a trap earlier this week has died. The adult bear was found by 2 teenagers while hiking in eastern Taiwan. A medical team was forced to amputate the bear's paw to rescue it, but while it was being treated, the bear went into shock and died from infection. Animal protection officials have been working to protect Taiwan's endangered Formosan black bears. They say they will give the teenagers who spotted the bear a cash reward. The full moon on Wednesday night was a rare blue supermoon, delighting stargazers around the world. This was the second full moon in August, which makes it a so-called blue moon. It was also a supermoon, when the moon is at its closest point to Earth, making it look larger and brighter than usual. This rare cosmic phenomenon won't be seen again until 2037. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Finally today, we'll leave you with images from Sri Lanka's Festival of the Tooth. I'm Philip Broussard. Take care and see you next time.